Okay, is it possible you can hear me now? There's a few second delay, but hopefully you can. Alright, are you actually hearing me talking? I'm going to just sit here and talk for a second, and then let me know if you can hear me. You should be... Oh, it should be okay now. Good. Yes! I figured it out! I figured out something technology! If this is your first time, sorry. But thank you for letting me know it wasn't coming through. For some reason, I had to go through and recycle all of my settings. But, because it worked fine when I was on a call on Monday. So, I don't know. Maybe the thing rebooted or something, or it didn't update and I didn't know. Hi! Welcome, everybody. So, where was I? Oh, I was on the tip of the day. So, let's start with that. Let me reboot myself here. Okay, so when you have a task that you're trying to accomplish that requires concentration, actual thinking things through, focused attention, we have some problems with the way our bodies are hardwired, and these days technology is not helping. We've gotten used to getting our information shorter and shorter pieces so that we don't have to concentrate as much. That's why TikTok is so popular, because it goes by so fast and you get all of these endorphin hits for being quick. But if you have a task where you really need to concentrate, and this is something you have to practice, it's not something you would get instantly, but you set an alarm for about 90 minutes. Now, most people can't handle much more than that, or much less than, and much less than that isn't as good, because you're not getting as much good time. The average person is 90 minutes. So you set your alarm, and at the end of 90 minutes, you take 20 minutes and you do something that's a low-value task. Something that doesn't require a lot of brain power. That might be, let's say I was working on a presentation I was going to give. 90 minutes to focus in on the presentation. Then 20 minutes I might do things like check email, or make a phone call, or get a snack, take a walk, stretch some. Those are things that are low value in terms of the brain power. And that gives you a chance to reset, and then you do another 90 minutes. It is a much better way to manage your energy than try to spend all day concentrating on a task, or getting distracted by all those low-level things without a scheduled break so that you can just take it, put it out of your mind, and say, I'm going to be doing that shortly, and get back to what you need to focus on. So it's a productivity tip. It's been out for a while, but the neuroscience is actually backing it up. So again, high value thing. And for us as quilters, it might be quilting. If you're trying to do something really intricate, or piecing things that are really fidgety, and then maybe you take 20 minutes and you iron or make phone calls or lunch or something, so that your brain can get a chance to shut down a little bit and relax and recover, and then you come right back into it for another 90-minute max. For some people it's 60, so at the beginning, start slower, but I wouldn't go much over 90. If you go as far as 120, they've found that the quality of the work starts dropping rapidly after the 90-minute mark. So you lose that extra benefit. It's better to take the breaks. 90-20, 90-20, 90-20. So that's our tip for today. Let me update you on some quilts. So, for some reason my Stream Deck isn't working. So I need to do this on the computer. So I apologize for that. Okay, so This camera is not where it needs to be, so I'm going to try to move it first so that I don't make everybody seasick. Okay, so switching to camera 3. So I have finished the quilting on the mystery quilts and the bindings. So I showed you this last time. So you can see my chalk lines here that I drew. I did do the black thread, which you can see on the colors, but you can't on the black. I think if I was doing this one again, I might have taken something in the hot pink or coral range and done the black in the other color. It would have meant traveling underneath, and you can just walk your needle under to the other side. So I would have done these two in the color and then these two in the black. But overall I think it's fine. And then this is the one that I self-bound. So here's the corner, and there is no binding at ledge here on the back. So that's the one that we talked about last time. In the meantime, I finished this one. With this case, I machine quilted it, and I just did loop-de-loops. So it went kind of to the right for a while, it went to the left for a while, it went back and forth. This one does not have either of the borders on it. So I'm going to just put this corner out there. And I'm going to lift this up so you get a better idea of what this looks like without either of the two borders. This has the traditional binding on it. So both are done. I am going to go ahead and put them up on the website so that you can see it a little bit more in depth. Probably not tonight. No, I keep going for the Stream Deck. I'm sorry. So probably won't be tonight, but it should be in the next couple of days. And then that way you can see them a little bit more up close and personal. But in general, that means that in October, if you've been following along, if not before, your mystery quilts are hopefully done. So that's one more out of the way, and we're actually a couple of months ahead for those of you that want to get started in doing some Christmas sewing. So that's that. Last time I also asked a whole mess of questions, and I don't have them here. Okay, I'm also trying to do stuff without putting my glasses on, so that's really helpful. I don't know where my list went. So, I am going to, again, I apologize, but this is life. So I am going to go ahead and I will also post the list of questions because they're, to some extent, about this year's upcoming quilt. Because I am starting to think about what kind of squares we want to do. So I will post up all of my questions and you'll be able to write back to me with what your preferences are. And included, if you just wanted the one size and we were going to go ahead and be done at the end of the year, or if you would like something maybe smaller where I could continue next year and keep adding more squares. So there's a whole bunch of questions on that. If you wanted a theme like stars or flowers or paper pieced or just traditionally pieced or English paper pieced or a combination of everything, so that I can start designing the quilt because I will have to be ahead of the game so I can have the first blocks ready prior to the beginning of the year so that it's ready for you guys when it's time. So I will be posting that as well probably in the next couple of days. So it'll be at StashBlasterQuilts.com, so you can go there and there'll be the annual quilts, which is the mystery quilt stuff. I'm not exactly sure. I think we'll probably start a 2024 folder and then put the questions in there for next time. So one of the things is if I do 2 blocks a month, that's 24 blocks, which works depending on how you want to arrange them, because of course that's a 4x6, but if you want a square you'd want 25, so I'd kind of like to add in another block. But if people aren't worried about finishing within the year, then we could keep going. If you want to finish within the year, then those last 2 months we could have as assembly and quilting, binding, etc., or maybe last 3 months, which would again make a difference in terms of how many blocks that I'm designing and what sizes. So that's why I'm going to be asking the questions. I did do a star quilt. Some of you may have seen it. That we could recreate if you would like something like it. And those were 12-inch blocks, so there were it was a double size, so it was 4 blocks in the middle, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 blocks. And it was done on black with really bright colors, so it really sparkled. But because they were 12-inch blocks, it's sort of scrap, sort of not. And I've had a request specifically for scrappy. So, you know, I could either make the blocks smaller and just do more of them, or we could just do a simple, here it is. So I'd really love your input on that stuff. So, updates on other quilts. I can't do that. It's going to drive me nuts having to do this on the screen the whole night because I keep going for my buttons. Okay, so I was telling you before about the modern hexagons, and the goal here was to only use hexes I had already made. And I have found I don't have enough in the light, darks, and mediums of every color to be able to do the big patches like the blue one and the red one that I have over here. Okay, because that was the original plan. This was all one patch here. So I'm debating dividing this up into small patches, maybe have some more blues and reds, kind of as a sample on a bigger design. So this is kind of on hold right now while I get it figured out what I want to do in terms of these patch sizes. But I definitely want them to be irregular. I want them to have a variety of lights, mediums, darks in circles. So dark, medium, light. And I know some of them aren't super clear what they are. It's easier to tell from when I'm coming into the room and it's mostly dark. But there's not as much contrast as I'd like either. So there's some questions going on what's going to happen with this. This is the fish and birds quilt. I was just sewing on this last night. The orange fish is now complete. I did straight lines this way on this back fin. I did fanned lines on these little fins. This is all scales. And then I got stuck with the nose. Because with real fish, their noses don't have scales on them. They're basically their heads from the gills forward don't have scales. And on the small fish, I could just ignore that because they're not a big part of the fish. And I'm trying to decide how I want to quilt the other fish. But that is such a big piece. It is 6 inches on the diagonals on the nose, which is a little much for a quilt that's likely going to be washed, because my plan is to have this on my couch. And so I know some of you have yelled at me about that already and told me I shouldn't do that. But it's likely to be on my couch. And so that means it will likely need to be washed. And that is too big a patch to leave unquilted, especially with the whole rest of it being quilted as densely as it is. So I asked some of my quilting buddies that were on Tuesday night. And so we just did some of the same orange, and I just did the 3 water ripples as if the nose was being distorted by the ripples in the water. I'm not sure how much I like that at this point, but luckily it's a little enough quilting that if I hate it, it won't be that much to take out. But that's now done. That's the only fish that's done, and I also haven't done the crab or the starfish. I thought I might work on the starfish tonight. Take that down and work on it over here with you guys. But That's just something where I'm like, I don't know. Because with a fish, when you look at its head, it'll have like pimples, little round circles, and little blobs and things. But they're pretty much smooth. So how do you quilt smooth? You know, you don't want to add a lot of texture, etc. So that was what I had been hemming and hawing over about for a while. Now, it had been a month, pretty much, since I had done any quilting. Actually, it had been more than a month since I'd done any quilting. I'd done some piecing. And I did the loop-de-loops on the mystery quilt. I did that, I think it was Saturday or last week. So I don't remember. It wasn't that long ago. But that's different than concentrated. And boy, I could tell the difference from when I had been doing all the quilting, you know, each week, for 2 or 3 days during the week. And so the middle of that light-colored stripe, you can see all these beautiful scales. And then you see the section that has mange, which is what I did yesterday. It's not good. It's not all that great. Again, it'll show at a quilt show sometime, just so that people can see it. But yeah, it's not my best work. But I also got to thinking that in nature, fish scales aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. It's okay, you still get the feel. And so when you see it in person at some point, because some of you will, you're welcome to go, your fish has mange. It's okay. But I have not made the commitment to myself to tear it all out and redo it, because I don't think it's that bad. If it is, you guys let me know. But it's at least done. Done is better than perfect at this point. Because this thing has been on my wall for a couple years now when you count everything else that's been going on. So my plan is over the next couple of months, I'm going to be working on the other big things, like the starfish and the crab and that kind of stuff. And then I'll decide on the little fish, because... Hold on, let me re-angle this so you can see it a little better. Okay, so these little guys here, there's not a lot of meat there for me to work with. I may decide to go ahead and do something. I may just stitch in the ditch, or I might just outline it and call it good enough. Because we're only talking a couple of inches for the whole length of the fish. This one, I think what I may do is do the fan on the tail, but then maybe just do ripple lines this way. Not as far apart as on the water, little tiny ones, but so there's some question about these small fish. And if nothing happens to them, it won't really matter. But these big monster ones have got to have good quilting on them. And so that's why I'm going to focus on them first. And if worse comes to worse, then the other ones will just stay unquilted. And maybe get quilted at a later date. At this point, I have locked in all my outer edges. So I don't know if I'll do this before you see it again, but I may go ahead and square it up so that I don't have all that batting and backing dragging on it, or getting in the way when I'm trying to do things. Because it'll be easier to quilt if I don't have all of that extra material that has to go under my throat here. I could even, once the crab and starfish are done, I'm going to double check this before I say it. Yep, there's nothing else on the edge. The starfish is up slightly, but the crab goes all the way to the bottom. When the crab is done, I might even go ahead and bind it, and then finish the quilting. There's nothing that would be hurt by that, and it would make everything stay nice and neat and clean. So that is something I may do. So I'm going to give that some thought. But anyway, so that's what's going on with the Fish and Birds quilt. Let me think. Other than that, I've got 4 other quilts in the works right now. Actually, let me switch. I'm probably going to have to move the camera again. I apologize. Let me move it down to the zoomed in first. Yep, can't see me at all. Might be a good thing. I don't know. Alright. Yes, okay. So, I will be going to Missouri in November. And I believe I'm going to be gone. I'm going to check that while I'm on right now. Let me just do that real quick. I believe that I will be gone during one of the live streams. In which case, I will again be attempting it from Thursday. Yes, I will still be in Missouri. So I will be trying it from there. I will be at Lake of the Ozarks, where I have never been before. And so I'm hoping that that will work out. And I'll be able to get it to work this time because it worked and then it didn't work. So, again, technology just like today. So hopefully we'll be able to get that to work. Which means I need handwork to do. So I am working on yet another hexie quilt. Since I'm trying to figure this one out, I had some slightly smaller papers, and I'm just doing some flower garden flower sets. You know, the center, then the one ring around. Because I'll use them somewhere, and in fact, I think I already know where I'm going to use them. But that's going to just be because I'm going to want to keep my hands busy. We're planning on 2.5 days to drive there, because since it's November, I want that extra cushion of the half day. Really, we're going to give 3 days. It shouldn't be that cold here in Washington, D.C. where I am, because we're midway down. But you know, whenever you look at the weather maps, the cold dips down in the middle of the country. And I don't want to get stuck with ice or snow or other bad weather and be worried about getting to the conference at which I'm speaking on time. So we're planning 3 days each way. But the 3 days I need to be there are the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's why I'm saying I will still be in Lake of the Ozarks. Even if we leave early and we come partway home that first night, I'm still going to be right at the beginning of the trip. So it's not like if I pushed I could get home in time to do it. So that'll be another road trip, one that you're going to be seeing. But I am going to have more time between now and then to sew than I had over this summer. So that feels pretty good. I have a dilemma. And for those of you who are empty nesters, you can appreciate this. My son had gotten his master's degree, and then we told him he could have a year to figure out how he wanted to apply it. Because it's a master's in education, which surprisingly does not allow you to teach at the junior colleges, like the community colleges, because you have to have a master's in a particular field, like math. And he only needed 2 math classes in order to get a second master's in math, but that's when COVID hit. Because I work with the older population, we said, okay, he was just starting to look for a roommate because around here you cannot get an apartment without a roommate. You just can't. So he was starting to look for a roommate when COVID hit, and we said, okay, because of the population that I work with, oh, and if this is your first time, I'm a professional organizer, and we work a lot with the older folks. So I knew I could trust him to guard himself, but I couldn't trust that his roommate would guard themselves and therefore him. And I catch anything that comes near me. I am like a major league catcher, because if there's a bug, I get it, and I get it worse than anybody else in the house. So I didn't want to take a chance on potentially infecting clients, especially since so many of my clients are frail, and since so many of them also might have gotten COVID or something else. So, I mean, I always get my flu shot and all that, but still. So we said, okay, you can stay. Well, he got very, very comfortable. Now, he has found a couple of roommates, and they just 2 days ago signed on an apartment, on a townhouse to rent. So the three of them are going to be renting a townhouse in Fairfax, and I'm going to get his room back for my own use. And so here's my dilemma. So I would love to hear from those of you that are watching, or later if you want to send a note. Do I take his room and extend my sewing space or my filming studio? Or do I make his room the guest room because it's larger than my guest room and take the smaller room for myself? If I make his room the guest room, it will be at least 50% bigger. So that's why I'm debating. Do I want to be nice when I occasionally have a guest? My stepmom comes to visit probably 3-4 times a year, and she deserves every inch I can give her. She's lovely. That's not the question, but I'm debating on how selfish I want to be. So I'd like you to weigh in. Since it would get more use as part of the sewing thing, is it better to take the bigger room for that, or should I be generous, make that my guest room, and take the smaller room? So if you have any sort of an opinion, please feel free to make it here. Since I only have the one kid, sometimes it's a bit different. Those of you that have had a bunch of kids and you've watched them go, then you kind of get this thing going, and this is what you've told me. You kind of know what you're going to do with stuff, and you've got a plan. And I originally was going to take it for sewing, but now I'm wondering if I shouldn't. So I don't want to be generous. I want to just take it and use it myself. Put a big, cutting table and all that stuff in there, but I could put a long arm in there if I ever wanted to do that. But the more I think about it, well, I would love to have a long arm on a computer so I could just set it and let it go. I don't know that I would use it enough to be worth what it would cost me versus paying somebody to quilt for me. The small stuff like you've seen here, if it doesn't matter, then I just go ahead and do it. And it's not great. I am not a great quilter. I know that, and I accept that. And I am, just like primitive art, I am a primitive quilter. However, if I have a client's quilt, then I send it out, and they pay to get it quilted. Would I do more of that quilting if I could at least do the overalls here? Yeah, possibly. Is it worth it? Probably not. Scott's opinion is that if we ever get a long arm, I should only use it for myself. So I don't feel like I have to take in enough work doing the part of this that I don't care for as much in order to pay for the machine, which I truly appreciate. But that's one of those things. It's like, So I'm probably never going to get a long arm. But the room is just barely big enough I could put one in there. So that kind of gives you an idea on spacing for those of you that have long arms. So that's part of it. I am going to commandeer it for a little while because over on my wall over here, I don't know if you can see this if I flip without moving the camera. No, you can't. You can just see the doors. On this wall, I have a 4-foot section of shelves that's coming off the wall. It's the standards, the white standards with the slots, and then you just hook in the brackets and then you put up the shelves. For some reason, those standards are not in the right place, and so they're starting to bow. So I need to get a handyman in here to fix that, and I want him to put stronger standards in the closet and some deeper shelves. Right now I only have 6-inch deep shelves. So if I put a sewing machine in there, I have to put it longwise. So I want 12-inch deep shelving in there So all of the stuff that's on this wall, with Jonathan, when he's gone, I can just take all of this stuff and move it to his room. I can even leave it piled, and then have somebody come in and get all of this work done, and then I can put it back where it belongs. So whichever room becomes the extra sewing room, I do have, there will be some piles in it for a while. But it would be really nice to not have to worry about it just, the day that somebody's coming to do the work, which is what I was anticipating having to do. But I'm going to keep this as my main room. And so this is where I'm going to continue to keep all my fabric, but I might have books, cutting tables, and that kind of stuff in the other room. Mostly because I don't want to have to redo this whole wall and do the boards and everything again. My other option would be to take the studio part of this, which is my desk here with the cameras and the lights and all that, and just move this part to whichever other room, either behind where you are now or to the big room over here, and use this and have the cutting table here so I can pull the fabric and cut right away, which also makes a lot of sense. So one way or another, this is still going to stay the main room, but do I take the studio out, or do I make the other room the cutting room and designing room, that kind of stuff? It's still up in the air. But my eyes are twinkling with my options, which makes for a nice change. Okay, I think that covers all the stuff on my list for today. So let's make some progress on the Fish and Birds quilts. I just need to get some pencils moved over. Pencils and pens. And pins. I was on Facebook the other day, and I guess it was National M&M's Day, and somebody was showing their sewing machine, and attached to their sewing machine was a rectangular open bin that they had full of M&M's. Other people had jars of them all over. For those of you that haven't seen it, my husband keeps refilling this for me with M&M's whenever it's empty. Because of course when you're sewing, you don't want to have anything where you could get any sort of food on your fingers. And so it's been over a year since he filled it, so I don't feel too guilty. But I was amused by the fact that people have contrapted M&M holders for their sewing machines. So I'm just over here now, since you're not where you can see me. I'm just over here with the quilt. I'm getting on my step ladder, because the only way to have this up far enough where you can see it is to put it all the way up to the ceiling, basically. I will say that these design walls are the best things I ever did, because with it coming so high, I can put anything up there at any time. I used to have a little 3x3 foot design wall, which meant I couldn't put hardly anything on it. All right. Of course, yesterday I had a tech problem that my machine kept being a problem. I'm just reading Judy's thing here. So I'm not doing anything until my son has moved out. So that's the compelling him to make it isn't an issue. But yeah, I get that. I had been trying to think of some ways to spur him on. I have tried to use curtains before, but for me, the fact that my curtains rippled, not a lot, but just enough that it made it harder for me to see. My vision isn't the world's best, so I like the fact that I can pin directly into these if I need to for weight. Like this whole quilt, is pretty heavy at this point, and there's nothing on that wall can't take. I would be a little concerned that I'd bring the curtains down or tear them. So, but I know a lot of people who do that. I know a lot of people who just use the painter's tape and stick their stuff on a wall anywhere in their house, you know. Or they'll tape up a flannel-backed tablecloth, like you get for picnics and things, you know, that's like the red and white check kind of thing on the one side, but it's flannel on the back. If you tape the plastic side to the wall, so the flannel is facing into the room, you can use that as a design wall. You just can't really pin into it. You have to pin, you know, just grab it just a little bit and come back out. Versus with this, I can put the pin the whole depth into the board, and I still won't come out the other side. But everybody has their different ways, and a lot of it depends on what space you have, what time you have, what budget you have. Those flannel tablecloths cost like under $5, and you know, you use 3, 4, 5 pieces of painter's tape, and that's fine. That's a very inexpensive solution. This was not cheap, because each one of these was a full sheet of foam insulation for each color, because there's the light side and the dark side, so that's 2 sheets. So there's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 on this wall, and there's another one over there, so that was 5 full sheets. Times 2 is 10 full sheets of the insulation. Then each one is covered on one side, the edges, and then about 2 inches on the back in flannel. Everything is glued together, so then there's the glue. Then there's the tiebacks that I made, which is what these are. So there's elastic. This is a sample for Formica, and then I padded it, and then I covered it in flannel. I have them in the light color and the dark color. Every other shelf is light or dark. So if I have the dark side out, I can have the dark tiebacks to make it a little less distracting. So yeah, this was not a cheap solution, but in terms of its usability for how I do things, it works really well. But for the longest time, I didn't have anything. At one point, I had one of those trifold project boards that the kids used in school, that I just took a piece of batting and I taped it to it, and which was actually kind of nice for travel when I was going to quilting things, because I could put my pieces on and then close it and then open it again, but then they would fall off, so I'd have to put them back on the sides, but it worked. And I still will occasionally use it if I'm going to a retreat or something, but it's all personal preference and money. And for me, it was worth it to have the permanence of this as well, because this means that I don't have to worry about UV from coming in my window and fading my fabrics, because they're all protected unless I'm actively looking for material. So pluses and minuses both ways. I just get a lot of sunlight through this window, and I noticed stuff was fading within probably 3 months of moving in. So for me, I was going to put the UV blocker on the windows, and I was going to make curtains over the shelving, etc., etc., etc. And then when I added the cost of material for the curtains versus the insulation, I said, you know what, I'm just going to do these things that I can move around. And another thing that's nice with these is that if I have a design on one board, I can always move the boards around, except for this end one. So I can stack them up, I can do all kinds of different stuff. This end one is different. I don't know if you can see, you can't. There's a block. Let me pull it out. Come on. Here it is. There's a block. So that's the dark side, here's the light side. You can see how thick it is. So this is in my design wall, because I have an outlet on this wall over here right where the board hits. And so I cut that piece out, and then I was like, but when I reverse it, I have to have a hole on the other side. So I cut the 2 holes, and then I said, but I don't want a hole in the design wall, which I know is petty because I have tons of yardage of design wall. So I made these little blocks, and then this fits in the hole, and whichever side is pointing this way, and then the outlet's exposed over there so that the plugs will fit. Silly things, you know, but this was scrap at that point. I did take leftover material from making these, both the insulation board and the material, and I did make little 12-inch design boards that I can carry around, and they're the 2-sided too, and I'm like, okay, I have it, I have the extra material, let's just play with it. So that's what I did. Okay, so let me switch to camera 3. Alright, that's me, you don't need to see me, you want to see the sewing machine. Sorry if I'm making anybody seasick, and I don't know why this keeps loosening up. It shouldn't. Okay. Alright, so here's my starfish. And so what I'm thinking I'm going to do, I've already brought up my thread from the bottom, and now I've lost it, so now I have to do it again. Too much talking, too little paying attention. Alright. Okay, here's my thread. Alright. So, I debated over what to do with this, because, let me get a little closer so you can see it better. You can see the fabric already looks like it's got suckers on it. All these little circles. I thought they were really cool. But I do have to do some sort of a quilting in here. So what I think I'm going to do is, I'm going to do some circles just down the middle. Now, on an octopus, there's often wavy edges and then the big suckers down the middle. Some octopi, actually octopi I found out is wrong, it's octopuses. Who knew? Some of them have 2 rows of the larger circles, but I think I'm just going to do 1. And I'm going to go around each one a couple of times. First of all, because if it's not perfectly round, it doesn't matter. It's natural and it won't be, but it'll give it a little bit more depth and chunkiness to it. And so I'm going to come all the way down into the middle where there should be a big circle here, because this is where the beak would be, and then radiate back out these other ways. So that's the plan. I'm not sure how well it's going to go. I guess you'll find out with me. Unfortunately, there's so much quilt on the floor, I can't find my pedal. Here we go. But anyway, yeah, I had always been told that multiple of octopus was octopi. Nope, it's octopuses. And so it's like, okay. Apparently, when you're talking to the scientists that do that, it bothers them. So, yes. Yes, okay. Alright. You know, I thought that was a better color match than that, but you know what? It's good enough. So I have 4 circles here, and where I'm ending here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the one big circle here to try and make it so that if I start from there, that I end up where I want to be out on the other points. I probably should have started in the middle to start with, but I didn't, so now I have to cope with the problems that that causes. And it's not huge amounts bigger, but it is bigger. Okay, now I'm going to go up this other arm over here. I do have one friend that told me that my quilting isn't as good as it should be because I'm impatient. And I have to say that they're probably right. I don't tend to quilt slowly. She does, but that's why she's better at it. But that's okay. Again, I'm looking at it as this is just natural. And hopefully it'll be good enough. So now what I'm going to do is, since I moved forward on the one side, I'm going to come back on the opposite sides to thicken it up to match the first. Oops. The weight slid. It's on my lap, but it slid anyway. Yep. Okay. Alright, so then I'm coming back here. And then I'm going to come back on the big circle. Should needle down the first time anyway. I'm going to work my way through. I use the bigger room for all my quilting in one room. Well, actually, the other room is the same size as the one that I'm in. The bigger room is the same size as the one I'm in. So I would actually wind up with 2 rooms in this situation. The question is which one became the guest room, the larger one or the smaller one? So, yeah, I cannot have all of the sewing in one room unless I move to the basement. I have a conference room down there for my organizing company right now, but when we close that business, which we will sooner or later, I'll either sell it or I will just dissolve it. So when that no longer is rented to conquer the clutter, then I may just take over the whole basement area where the conference room is now, because that would be larger than the room I'm currently sitting in. So one of the questions that I asked last time is if you guys would like to see a sewing room tour. So if you'd like to see what I have, then what I may do is put together a before and after video of being in the one room, and then whichever room I take over, what I decide to do with it. And then show you both rooms at that point. I generally don't have people in my sewing space, but we're all friends here. So if that's something that you'd like to see at some point, either put it in the chat or write to me at the on the website, or send me an email, and I will definitely put it on the options. So I know a lot of people that do costuming and stuff also will occasionally show their spaces. So, and I know that Karen Brown every year does an organize your sewing room, do it with me kind of thing. And she's had some really good ideas on those. So if you haven't subscribed to her Just Get It Done Quilts channel, you might want to consider taking a look. And the beginning of each year, she does a sewing room organizational series. So each day there's a different thing to go through. It'll be clothing or books or things like that. So if that's something that is of interest to you, then you can join her on her annual exercise. But I have never done a sewing room tour. So I don't know if that's good or bad, actually. I guess since I spend so much time in here at night instead of in the day when it's a good lighting and stuff to show, I tend to just not do it. And I just realized I called the starfish an octopus all those times. Well, starfish have suckers too. And that's what I meant to say, is that they have them either in one or two rows. So, called it an octopus. I'm like, I have 4 out of 5 legs. Oh, wait a minute. Octopus means 8 legs. What is Maria doing here? So I apologize for that. And the completely useless knowledge over the octopuses thing. I am known for having lots of information that's completely useless in the real world. So, my husband calls it the font of useless knowledge. And he loves it when I come up with something weird, so it's meant lovingly. This is the last circle. I'm going 3 times around. Off to the side. Drop it, pick it back up. Then I'm going to drop and cut. So, the starfish is done. It's not glorious, but hopefully you can see. Nope, you can't see hardly anything. But there's a circle here. Oh, there you go. Now you can see some of the... Where is it here? Okay, yeah, here. Here's a circle. There's a circle. So, that's what it's got. At this point, we're a couple of minutes past 8. I know I kept you longer. But I hope you had a good time, and I'm not sure what we'll be doing next time, but we'll probably be working on the crab, knowing me, or one of the other fish. But all in all, I hope you had a good time. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell if you want to know when we're doing this, but it is the first and third Wednesday of every month. And I hope to see you back here again. So let's go do some sewing. Take care. Bye-bye.